Can men be biological women?
Welcome to Answers News for Monday, December 2nd, 2024.
In today's top story, a Montana lawmaker rejects science and reality in a bold claim.
Rejecting reality? This is coming from people who literally believe in magic.
Hello, I'm Dr. Georgia Purdon with Patricia Engler and Dr. Marissa Tillery. And right up with our first article, gender-confused Montana lawmaker claims he is every bit as biologically female as women. All right, that's a blatant lie. Okay, blatant lie. If he is a guy, he cannot be every bit as biologically female as he thinks he is, because every single cell in his body has something that no female has. He has a Y chromosome, all right? And so I have a new saying. I'm a geneticist by training.
Well, I'm not a scientist, but I do know one thing. Neither are you. Hello everyone, welcome back to The Simple Skeptic. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Hit that little bell, you'll be notified every time a new video comes out. And hit the like or unlike. I can't tell you what to do, but a like would be preferred. Answers in Genesis once again is going off on a tangent against transgender people. The article they're referencing on this particular video is a propaganda site from the Catholic Church named LifeSite, which seems rather interesting considering that many evangelicals consider the Pope to be the Antichrist and the Catholic Church to be the lair of Satan himself. But we'll ignore that incongruity for now. Georgia Purdon claims to be a molecular geneticist. She may have managed to get a degree, but she is no longer a scientist for a couple of reasons. First, she has chosen to sell off her degree to the lowest bidder. It's the lowest because it promises a payoff only after you die, at which point you don't even get the opportunity to find out you've been conned. You're just dead. But AIG requires all of their employees to adhere to a strict statement of faith, which says that the Bible is the only authority on all matters, and if science disagrees, then science is wrong. Therefore, she is not allowed to do science, either by her own conscience or by the dictates of the organization she works for. Science is a process of free and open inquiry into the natural universe. And since she's not allowed to do that, she can't practice science. Therefore, she's not a scientist. Second, she either has not bothered to keep up with her chosen field, because of reason number one, so she doesn't know, or equally likely lies about, the more recent knowledge about genetics and associated biochemistry. Her antiquated and farcical views are not only out of date, but are cruel and dangerous to people who are simply trying to exist free from religious hatred. And some have died because of this propaganda.
And so my saying now is no Y, no guy. Okay? If you don't have a Y chromosome, you cannot be a guy. Females have two X's, guys have an X and a Y. Okay, so that is just a blatant lie.
Really? Let's expose her bullshit with something she probably knows and hides, because Bible. I'm not going to go into extreme detail here because, unlike some others, I will not lie and exaggerate my credentials and my knowledge. And I don't want to misquote and mangle sources that you can look up yourselves. But suffice it to say that her statement is absolutely wrong, for at least two reasons. First, let me introduce you to one of her more graphic mistakes: de la Chapelle syndrome, also known as XX male syndrome. Males carry both X and Y chromosomes, and nominally, the sex of the offspring are determined by which sperm cell, X or Y, manages to fertilize the mother's ova. However, during sperm production, random mutations can take place, and one is the accidental crossing over of the sex-determining region Y protein, SRY, also known as the testis-determining factor, onto the X chromosome. This means that while their genes may say XX, the intervention of the SRY protein causes the person to be born with outwardly male characteristics. The presentation is not absolutely complete. While the testes develop, they are typically undersized and are infertile. The penis is usually of normal size and functional. Breasts do not develop. Body hair is typically male. And without medical level examination, anyone would see the person as male. Over to you, Georgia. Second thought, scratch that. It should be obvious by now that her opinions on the subject are no longer relevant. But let's introduce her to Swyer syndrome, which is basically the opposite of De La Chapelle syndrome. In this condition, XY chromosomes are present, but the SRY protein does not become activated, and typically male features do not develop. Rather, they will appear female, although, as with De La Chapelle syndrome, sexual characteristics such as ovaries do not fully develop. Patients with Swyer syndrome can have conditions like fragile bones and low bone density, but hormone replacement therapy can mitigate these problems. And if the uterus has developed sufficiently, the implantation of a fertilized donor egg can result in a normal pregnancy. How about that, Georgia? An XY male giving birth.
Yeah, that's what we see over and over again is these men that are pretending to be women claiming just an outright biological scientific lie.
To you, it's a lie because you refuse to accept the scientific reality that gender exists on a spectrum. And it's influenced by biochemistry, which is not always as precise as you might think or wish.
This is going to be the theme today with a lot of these articles. Just be aware of these changing of definitions, but I think men to woman is a pretty blatant changing of definitions there.
No, definitions are not being changed. Men are still men, women are still women. But we've come to realize that physical presentation does not always conform to brain chemistry. Whether one is a man or a woman is more to do with how one feels than whether one has a penis or a vagina.
This comes on the heels of the new ruling coming out saying that transgender individuals can't use certain restrooms in the Capitol buildings. But it's important to note that every member of the House of Representatives has their own private restroom within their office space. So what they do in their own office space, is their business for the most part, and that unisex restrooms are available throughout the Capitol. So it was really just this Montana state representative who was kind of trying to buck the system here.
And then apparently he went on and did that according to a quote in the actual article. But you mentioned changing definitions because that's really key to zoom in on a little bit. For instance, terms like cisgender have only come up pretty recently when in the past that just wasn't even a thing that people would think about.
Neither did we have the term Christo-fascist, but I've been seeing it a lot more since people like you try to make society live by your inflexible idiocy. And the first use of the term cisgender was in 1994. So that's how out of date you are.
And it kind of brings to mind the point that when people try to redefine truth, part of that is trying to control the language and redefine it, because that's really something to watch out for.
Science doesn't have a claim to truth in an absolute sense. It only describes what appears to be factual, given the best and latest information, and that often necessitates coming up with new terms from existing language. It happens all the time. We describe things in everyday society and with words and so forth that we come up with from other words.
And it even harkens back to different classic dystopian novels like 1984, where one of the main characters was being told and kind of brainwashed into having to say that 2 + 2 is 5. And this type of dystopia we're actually seeing play out in a lot of just real-life cases now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I was really thankful for Speaker Mike Johnson. He's a Christian, and I really respect him. His wife spoke at our women's conference actually earlier this year, and he spoke at our conference, women's conference, a couple years ago. And I really respect that he's standing ground here on who should use what restroom, because Sarah McBride, who's also mentioned in this article, so even though that I'm using a female name, it's actually a he, okay? And it's the first transgender person, so to speak, in the House of Representatives and for the state of Delaware. And so again, Mike Johnson saying, no, you can only use the restroom associated with your biological sex. And again, it's not like Marissa pointed out, they have other restrooms they can use, like in their office. So why are they, again, it's all the way, it has to be everything, right? Everything has to be changed. It can't be, well, there's accommodations for you or there's other restrooms you can use. They want to be able to take over it all, which is very true of Marxism and that whole idea that we see with that.
Yes, because the point for a trans person is, am I accepted or not? Telling them that they can use one restroom but not another is no different than separate rooms for whites and people of color. I'm not sure if you're old enough to remember, but that was the thing in my lifetime. And Marxism, where did that come from? You're just trying to build up the fear of the dreaded socialist agenda.
Yeah, and it's interesting too how it's only certain truths that kind of align with that Marxist agenda, that there's oppressed people and oppressors, and you have to, basically the feelings of the oppressed people is what represents the new truth. It's just another form of idolatry, really. Certain people are basically saying that they can make up the rules, be self-creators, and define what truth is for themselves, and then make everybody else have to follow along with that.
Garbage. The feelings of oppressed people are just as valid as yours. In fact, if they're oppressed, they're probably more valid, if one cares about equality and equity, and letting them speak for themselves about their own experiences. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to listen? Doubt it.
And then that leads to this whole idea of new cultural blasphemy laws and new kind of forms of hereticism. If you stand up to that, you're kind of now shunned for going against culture's new religion.
The takeaway I get from that is that you're afraid of being shunned for thinking that some people aren't worthy of your consideration and accommodation. Well, you should be shunned for that. You deserve it.
Yeah, you even see some of this terminology, like they'll say things like sex assigned at birth. And every time I hear that, I just kind of cringe internally because I'm like, there's no sex assigned at birth. You are asex at birth. They're not assigning it to you. They're saying because you have certain biological parts to you that you are either male or female, right? And so it's very obvious.
Well, the physical presentation of genitals may be obvious, but how the hell can you tell the gender identity of a baby at birth? You can't. Don't try to convince me otherwise. That's just stupid.
And we, every human being, whether male or female, is created in God's image, right? And we need to be who we are created to be.
In the image of God. Men and women are created in the image of God. So God is two people, one male, one female. God is intersex? What the hell is going on here? Anyway, there you have it, folks. It's Christofascism laid bare. The idea is that we have to go along with their religious ideas of what male and female are. We have to rigidly stick to those, and all of our society has to be run by their rules. No, sorry, we're not going to do that. You want to live by that? Go ahead. You can live by that if you wish, within your church, within your family, whatever. But no, we're not going to allow you to force your religious ideas on the rest of the world. Anyway, let's relax, have a bit of fun. At the end of each video, I like to put up a quote by a creationist, maybe the flat earther once in a while or something, but some silly quote that'll give you a giggle, and just let you relax for a bit. And everybody, have a nice day.